When adapting something from one medium to another, you would think being faithful to the source material and staying true to the characters is actually kind of the norm, or at least it should be. But apparently in Hollywood, that's kind of a novel concept. So right now I got this article from Bounding Into Comics. Netflix live-action One Piece EP Marty Adelstein reflects on failed Cowboy Bebop adaptation. What we learned is that the fans are expecting you to be true to the source material. You think? Scrolling down into the article, he just mentioned this, as audiences have been telling Hollywood for the past decade, that all fans want of any adaptation is source material accuracy. Now, there's reasons why they change things from the source material. I mean, I think one of the more innocuous ones, or one of the more innocent ones, even if it's misguided, is just kind of the fact that they're like, well, this is something we want to adapt, but it'll require a huge budget to tell it faithfully. And we can't do that with the audience that this already has. So we need to try to tweak some things to expand it out to a wider audience in order to justify the budget that this is going to require. But unfortunately, by doing that, if you're making too many changes, then it's going to alienate that core fan base of it. And then they're going to be the first ones who see it, the first ones talking about it. And then the general audiences will hear that and see like, oh, well, even the fans of this don't like it, so it must not be very good. And that's where you'll get things tanking. But then you'll have other reasons why things don't work, like with Cowboy Bebop, where they didn't really want to be faithful to the source material. What they wanted to do is use it as kind of a springboard to tell their own stories. So they're just trying to figure like, okay, well, how can I basically fit the original stuff into my story or something like that, so we can justify using the name and try to get the built-in fan base that way. And I think that's the completely wrong mindset to do it. And I think most people understand that now and are trying to get away from it. But you still also get those writers who are trying to basically use the source material as the springboard to tell their own thing. And a lot of times that's when they're trying to push their own like social justice agendas and things like that. And that's when you'll get like race swap characters and other things. And they also use that as a bit of a shield in case there's criticism, because if they're making their changes that people don't like already, they'll just race swap a character and be like, well, if you don't like this, it's because you're racist or whatever. I mean, and I think nowadays fans are starting to grow wise to that. But there's also other reasons why adaptations don't work, and it's simply the fact that some material just isn't adaptable. I mean, even with the best of intentions. Now, I got this other article pulled up just from about a month ago or so, where they actually does address like any criticisms about any changes that are in this live action ones. And apparently the creator of One Piece, Eshiro Oda, actually came out and did say like he was approving, he had to approve the cast of the show, and then also any major changes that they wanted to make to it. He had to be the one to personally approve any changes to it. But I mean, for the most part, they try to stay as faithful as they possibly could given the format. And I think that's ultimately a good thing, because some things that like you want to make a change early on, but some of the stuff early on in One Piece does have ripple effects that go way further out. So maybe it might seem like a small change here, but it has like lasting consequences depending, or at least it'll change like how they have to make things shape up later on. So it is important to have the original creator say like, whether they can change something or not. I mean, you might say like, oh, can we just leave this character out? And he'd be like, no, that character is important later on, so we have to establish him here for X, Y, and Z reason or whatever, which I think is a good thing. Ultimately, though, I think the biggest issue with something like this is just the fact that this show is supposed to cover, it's supposed to cover around 45 episodes of the anime, and this is about 8 episodes long. Now, I don't know the length of these. I'm assuming there may be like hour-long episodes or something like that, or at least I hope they're hour-long episodes versus the anime, which is about 20-minute episodes. And yeah, there is stuff in the actual anime that they can cut out, and they can kind of, because if anyone who's actually watched it, I mean, there are certain things with pacing or whatever where it kind of holds on stuff a little bit longer, and there is recaps and other things like that, so you can speed things up a bit. But I mean, still condensing 45 episodes into about 8 episodes, even if they're longer in length, is a heavy challenge. And obviously things are going to have to be cut as a result of that. And it's just a matter of, can you actually cut a lot of that stuff and still be faithful to the source material? And even if you can, are you able still to kind of portray the story as how they actually want to portray it? Because keeping in mind, I mean, anyone who's actually seen One Piece knows it's kind of a goofy show and far out there. And if this show doesn't work, I think it's not because they weren't trying to actually be faithful to the source material, but I think the biggest issue is just the fact I don't think this is something that's adaptable to a live action format. I mean, given the nature of everything, I mean, I think it might just be a little too goofy and cartoony for that kind of format, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, the trailers I have seen so far, I mean, it looks decent, but keeping in mind that's pretty much putting their best foot forward, so it might not necessarily work in the grand scheme of things, and maybe the effects are only work on like those few shots that we have seen, and everything else will just look too bad. But I don't know. I mean, if this is true though, where they're trying to be faithful to the source material, I'm hoping it works. I want this to do good, because if it does do good, then maybe it'll set a tone for a lot of other Hollywood productions, where they'll start to learn like, hey, it will be faithful to the source material, and we'll bring in that big audience that we're trying to actually bring in, and maybe they'll start bringing in more people. But I don't know, that's just my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, and if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.